The cold sensation of water still lingers on my skin. It was the icy liquid that seeped from the concrete floor during my previous life, when I was detained in an underground basement abroad. The dark vision before me was instantly shattered by the harsh sunlight. The buzzing noise of machines faded away, replaced by the noise and cheers from the university classroom. I suddenly opened my eyes and looked down at my hands. There were no bruises or scars, only faint, crescent-shaped marks from gripping tightly. The electronic clock on the table clearly displayed the date. It was the last summer afternoon before my graduation. At the front of the classroom, Chloe, the school's beauty, stood at the podium, wearing a well-fitting white suit, standing with a smile on her face. In her hands, she held a stack of exquisite papers with gold-edged borders. Those papers were the direct cause of the disaster in my previous life, the so-called summer high-salary internship program offered by a top foreign technology company. In that life, I, as an outstanding graduate from my class, trusted Chloe blindly. I not only signed up for the program first, but also helped her recruit other students from poor backgrounds to join the program. It wasn't until we were taken to an unnamed, closed office far beyond the border, with our passports confiscated, and we being subjected to electric shocks and physical abuse day and night, forced to participate in transnational financial fraud, that I realized that it wasn't really an internship at all. It was a complete scheme of human trafficking and illegal money laundering. In the end, during a rescue attempt, I was pushed down from the 3rd floor by those people, dying miserably in the cold rain. Everyone, please be quiet for a moment. Chloe reached out and pressed the microphone, her voice gentle yet powerful. The number of internship opportunities abroad is very limited. I managed to get one through my family connections. The starting salary is $8,000 per month, with meals and accommodation provided. Those who perform exceptionally well can even receive an executive position at the overseas headquarters after graduation. I know everyone in our class is vying for these internships, but as a classmate, I decided to give priority to the best candidates from our class. After saying that, her gaze fixed precisely on me, sitting in the back row. There was a sense of superiority in her eyes, as if she was offering something as a favor. Under the gaze of dozens of eyes filled with envy, jealousy, and even admiration, Chloe walked up to my desk, wearing her high heels that made a clear sound as she moved. She handed me a contract already filled with my personal information, along with a black pen for me to sign. Here, you can sign first. The first spot is yours. There's no disagreement, right? Chloe raised her chin slightly, her smile seemingly sincere, but her eyes gleamed with a hint of arrogance. The surrounding students began to murmur in low voices, expressing their envy. Some whispered that I was really lucky, while others gave Chloe sly looks, hoping that the next spot would go to them. Memories from my previous life flooded back to me like a tidal wave, those nights when I was forced to write huge debts, those voices crying out for help when my passport was confiscated. All of these memories screamed wildly in my mind. I looked at the contract with its beautiful patterns on it, and my hand slowly reached out towards it. Chloe thought I would be as excited as I was in my previous life, with her smile becoming even more obvious. She even prepared her phone camera to capture my signature. However, my hand never reached out to take that pen. I pressed both hands onto that stack of thick contracts at the same time, using my palms to tear them apart with force. Tear, tear. The sound of paper tearing apart was extremely loud, and instantly filled the entire classroom with complete silence. Chloe's smile disappeared instantly, and her pupils contracted rapidly. Before she could react, I crossed my arms and torn the stack of contracts into 2 pieces again, then into 4 pieces, and finally into 8 pieces. The white paper scraps flew everywhere like snowflakes, scattered onto Chloe's expensive white high heels, as well as onto the cold floor tiles in front of the podium. What are you doing? Chloe's voice became shrill from shock, even tinged with a hint of panic. The entire class remained silent, everyone staring at me as if I were some kind of monster. Some people stared with wide eyes, others gasped in shock, completely unable to understand what was happening before them. I slowly stood up, looking down at her face, which was twisted with anger. I showed no signs of anger, nor did I make any hysterical accusations. My calm expression even made people feel a chill running through their bones. Such a flawed contract, One that doesn't even have the necessary qualifications approved by the Ministry of Commerce. It's just a waste of space. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clearly heard throughout the quiet classroom. You're just trying to end your own life. Don't bring such a worthless contract to others. Are you crazy? Chloe's face turned from white to red, then to black. She pointed at me, her fingers trembling slightly. This is a chance to earn $1 million per year. I gave you this opportunity because we're all classmates. Do you know how many people begged me for this spot? And you're here acting like a fool? You don't even try to improve yourself. You're jealous of me for getting these resources, so you have to resort to such despicable methods to gain attention. The other students who were watching also rushed out and started to criticize me, pointing at my nose and saying, "Exactly. What's the point of acting so high and mighty? Chloe offered you a high-paying job out of kindness. Instead of being grateful, you even tried to tear up the contract. I think she just feels unbalanced inside. Why can Chloe, who is not only the school beauty but also has money and access to these exclusive spots, just sit back and do nothing? She really doesn't know how to handle things properly. Such people deserve to never find a good job in their life." Facing such accusations and criticism, I didn't even lift an eyelid. I gracefully packed my computer and books into my backpack, zipped it up, and carried it on my shoulder. As I passed by Chloe, I turned my head slightly and said something in a cold voice, something only the two of us could hear. "Your game is just beginning. Enjoy the mess you've created yourself." Without giving anyone another chance to argue, I pushed open the doors of the lecture hall. Under the shocked, angry, and confused gazes of everyone around me, I walked away without looking back, into the harsh sunlight of summer. Within half an hour after the contract was torn up, the Campus Anonymous forum became an uproar. A post titled "Exposing the Real Face of a Prominent Student, Jealous of Classmates and Intent on Sabotaging a High-Salary Project" quickly topped the search list. The photo accompanying the post was very deliberate. It was of the moment I was tearing up the contract right in front of Chloe's feet. The text description of my character was painted as someone who became jealous and irrational due to having an ordinary background and unable to access top-tier resources. The comments section was filled with outrage and mockery. Even some of my former classmates distanced themselves from me. Some even suggested that the school should revoke my title of outstanding graduate. Sitting in my rental house, I watched the vicious comments scroll by on the screen, with no expression on my face, not even a hint of emotion. I neither spoke up to clarify things nor tried to argue with anyone on the forum. In the face of absolute power and traps, verbal arguments are nothing but meaningless wasted effort. I quickly pulled down the curtains to completely isolate the noise from the outside world. Then, I opened the terminal interface of the invisible browser. During my previous imprisonment, I was forced to help that foreign organization organize all its financial accounts and corporate structures in order to find a way to escape. I was well familiar with the methods used by their domestic agents to carry out their crimes. Chloe's so-called offshore unicorn company was actually called Vanguard Global Innovation, and its registered address was located on a well-known offshore island. With my long fingers, I quickly typed away at the keyboard, accessing the Public Business Information System and the Overseas Corporate Registration Database. After some comparisons, the results were exactly as I had expected. This so-called unicorn company had changed its equity structure just a month ago. Its domestic legal representative was essentially a person with no real background. But the real controller and person authorized for private transactions was someone else entirely. It was clearly marked with the name of Chloe's uncle. Even more ridiculous was the fact that the internship contract, intended to recruit students, was signed with a so-called official seal from the overseas headquarters. The English spelling of this seal even contained one fewer letter than that of a proper institution. This is a typical Ponzi scheme, created by taking advantage of information gaps. High salaries are used to attract ignorant students to overseas. Then those students are used as leverage to extract huge ransoms from their families back home. At the same time, fake accounts are created under the names of these students to conceal illegal funds. I sneered inwardly, then registered a non-profit legal and business risk consulting firm called Aegis Risk Advisory online. I compiled all the known vulnerabilities of Vanguard Global, the spelling errors in their official seals, signs of illegal activities involving offshore accounts, as well as the legal risks associated with their illegal labor agency operations in China. I then prepared an extremely professional report titled Cross-Border Employment and Compliance Risk Alert Report, which met the highest industry standards. I didn't release this report publicly at all. Instead, I anonymized it and sent it directly to the school's legal department, the Municipal Labor Inspection Agency, along with several authoritative legal media outlets that are closely monitoring issues related to employment scams involving recent graduates. After doing all this, I opened my social media app and noticed that Chloe posted a prominent announcement in the class group. "Thank you for your trust. After urgent approval from the headquarters, we have successfully added 3 more internship spots. This evening at 8 p.m., we will host a high-salary internship banquet at the banquet hall of a 5-star hotel in Jinling. All students who have registered and those who are interested can participate for free." The group immediately erupted with cheers and compliments. Some even sent me a sarcastic message. Some people broke their contracts. Are they now regretting it? With tears in their eyes? In the crystal banquet hall on the top floor of the 5-star, the atmosphere was dazzling, with lights shining brightly and people dressed in elegant attire. The air was filled with the scent of expensive perfumes and champagne. To host this so-called overnight high-paying internship reception, Chloe clearly invested a lot of effort. In the center of the banquet hall stood a 3-story champagne tower. On the large LED screen, the promotional video of Vanguard Global Innovation Company was playing in a loop, showing skyscrapers standing against the blue sky. Elite executives dressed in exquisite attire, along with the enticing slogan, "Annual salary of $1 million, with a house to buy within 3 years." The 15 students in the class who signed up for the contract were standing around Chloe, wearing rented cheap suits and formal dresses, with smiles that were both flattering and blindly pleasing. Chloe stood at the center of the stage, wearing a black gown that exposed her back, wearing a dazzling necklace. She gracefully sipped her wine, as if she were the star surrounded by other stars. "Classmates, after tonight, we will truly become the elite of the international workplace." Chloe's voice echoed through the microphone in the banquet hall, filled with an undeniable sense of pride. Some people are narrow-minded, unable to see the opportunities that the times offer us. They want to spend their lives stuck at the bottom. But I'm different. I want to help everyone achieve success together. Instantly, applause and cheers erupted from the audience. Some of the followers even shouted loudly, "Follow Chloe, and you'll get rich." Those who broke contracts are probably crying in their dormitories right now. Just then, the heavy redwood doors of the banquet hall were slowly opened. The sound of sharp heels hitting the ground was particularly clear amidst the pauses in the cheers. I wore a stylish, minimalist custom suit in dark gray, with no unnecessary decorations at all. My hair was neatly tied back at the back of my head. In my hand, I held a black leather briefcase. I entered the room with a calm expression on my face. On my chest, there was a golden badge that clearly indicated me as a business and legal risk compliance advisor hired by the Jinling Hotel. The atmosphere in the banquet hall became suddenly silent. Everyone's gaze fell upon me. Some people let out sounds of surprise, others looked embarrassed. Chloe's smile instantly froze, and a hint of disbelief and malice flashed in her eyes. "What are you doing here? This is an internal high-paying internship reception dinner. No outsiders are welcome here." The person who was the loudest in the classroom immediately stepped forward, pointing at my nose and scolding me loudly. "What? You're regretting it? Want to ask Sister Chloe for a spot? I'm telling you, it's too late." I didn't even look at that assistant. I simply walked past him and stepped forward onto the stage. I raised my head slightly, looking at Chloe standing on the podium with a calm expression on my face, a hint of a smirk on my lips. "You're overthinking things." My voice wasn't loud, but it was very effective. "I'm here tonight as a compliance risk consultant at the Jinling Hotel. We received a report that someone was using our hotel's premises to organize illegal fundraising activities and unlicensed labor recruitment events. As someone responsible for risk management at the hotel, it's my duty to review the qualifications of the companies involved in tonight's event." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Chloe stepped forward, her high heels making a loud noise on the steps. She pointed at me, her voice sounding somewhat nervous. "What do you mean by illegal fundraising? We're a legitimate overseas unicorn company. The contracts are legal and compliant. Stop talking nonsense because of personal jealousy." "Legitimate company? I raised my eyebrows slightly, then took out several documents written in black on white paper from my briefcase. I quickly activated the multimedia device located next to the podium. Before Chloe and her staff could even react, the luxurious promotional video that was playing on the screen was instantly cut off. Instead, several high-quality documents related to international business registrations and English language termination agreements appeared on the screen. "Please look at the big screen," I said, pointing at the terms displayed on the screen. "These are the actual registration details of the overseas parent company mentioned in the overseas high-salary internship contract that we signed this afternoon." Everyone's attention was immediately drawn to the big screen. Although most people couldn't understand the complex legal terms in English, the words highlighted in red on the screen were clearly visible. First, this so-called unicorn company with a market value of billions of dollars actually has no physical office space or actual operations. Its rating in international business databases is highly risky shell company. Second, my voice became icy, my gaze cutting like a blade as I stared at Chloe's aging face. The English stamp used on the contract seems impressive, but there's a mistake in the company name. Coincidentally, this company was shut down 3 months ago due to suspected cross-border money laundering. Third, and most importantly, I turned around and took out 15 red notices from my briefcase, tossing them onto the table next to the champagne tower with a sharp clatter. According to our entry and exit management law and foreign labor cooperation regulations, any entity or individual who organizes people to leave the country under the guise of high salaries is suspected of illegal business activities or even human trafficking. All contracts you sign today are legally invalid, and they contain no legal guarantees whatsoever. The entire room was in an uproar. The 15 students who had been cheering just now looked at each other, their smiles disappearing instantly, replaced by deep fear and unease. Is this really happening? The company that was cancelled? Is the official seal wrong? Chloe, what's going on here? Didn't you say this was part of your family's internal resources? Facing the students' questions, Chloe's face turned from pale to blue, then to red. Her breathing became rapid, her chest heaved violently, and her hand, which was pointing at me, trembled uncontrollably. "You're lying. You're trying to fabricate evidence. You're slandering me." Chloe suddenly started screaming hysterically, pointing at the screen and shouting, "Everyone, don't believe her. She's jealous of me. She sees that I can offer everyone a job with $1 million a year, but she doesn't have such opportunities. That's why she's trying to find these fake documents to ruin our chances. She, a newly graduated student, how could she possibly have access to these international documents? Those documents must be fake, created using Photoshop." It has to be said that Chloe's mental toughness is even greater than I imagined. She took a deep breath, trying to suppress the panic in her eyes, and forced herself to maintain a cold and calm expression. "Everyone, please stay focused." Chloe turned around, facing the students who were visibly shaken. She raised her voice. "If there's any problem with our project, how could internationally renowned venture capital funds provide us with funding? If this is a fake company, then why can the person in charge of the project get the support of top investors in Silicon Valley?" With that, Chloe suddenly pulled out a golden-encrusted letter from her name tag, along with financial documents, and slammed it onto the table. "See this? This is a letter of intent from Mr. Eric, one of Silicon Valley's top venture capitalists, along with a personal guarantee for $5 million in funding." Chloe looked at me from above, her eyes filled with fanaticism and malice. "All you say is about laws and regulations. Do you really think that wearing a suit makes you a judge? In the face of absolute capital, your ridiculous tactics are simply laughable." Looking at the document signed by Eric, several students in the audience became hesitant again, casting skeptical looks at me. However, when I saw that so-called funding guarantee letter, I wasn't even slightly panicked. Instead, a cruel and smug smile appeared on my lips. In my previous life, I might not have known who Eric was. But this time, on the first day of establishing my risk consulting firm, I had already researched the compliance lists of top venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. As one of the most rigorous compliance investors in the industry, Eric has extremely strict requirements regarding personal reputation and signature authorizations. Moreover, His foundation announced half a year ago that they would never participate in any early-stage labor projects on offshore islands. This signature guarantee is not even a glimmer of hope at all. It's actually a shackle that Chloe has put on herself, leading towards a conviction for serious crimes. I didn't engage in any meaningless arguments with Chloe in person. In front of everyone, I took a clear, high-resolution photo of that so-called Eric's handwritten signature guarantee with my phone. Then, I looked up at Chloe and gave her a deep look. That look was like looking at a dead man who has jumped into the gallows but still smugly thinking about his own achievements. I hope by tomorrow, you can still be as confident as you are now. I said those words calmly, amidst the complex, shocked, and confused gazes of everyone present. Then, with grace, I put away my briefcase, turned around, and walked out of the banquet hall. As I stepped out of the hotel, the cool breeze of the summer night blew against my face. I sat in the back seat of the taxi, turned on my phone, and scanned the copy of the signature guarantee document I had just taken photos of, along with all the evidence related to international fraud-related matters. I secretly sent these documents to 2 email addresses. One was the official reporting email of the Overseas Compliance Monitoring Team, who truly possess the trademark rights and financial oversight authority of that organization. The other email address was a confidential reporting channel for the Financial Crime Investigations Bureau. Last night, the incident at the fundraising event caused a huge stir on campus. However, Chloe's efforts to handle this situation were far more thorough than I imagined. Early the next day, she posted screenshots of her video call with the headquarters executive across campus networks and various class groups, along with an electronic copy of the $500,000 payment receipt signed by venture capital investor Eric. The clear will be cleared, Chloe wrote in her social media post. Some people are trying to slander us using vague information about offshore company registrations. They are completely ignorant. Real capital and resources always belong to those who have vision and courage. Next Monday, the first batch of 15 interns will depart for their journey, marking the beginning of our era of high salaries. With this seemingly flawless proof of funding, the 15 students who were initially hesitant were completely reassured. They not only stood on Chloe's side once again, but they even began to attack me online, mocking me as a tragic clown who can't get any grapes. Facing this overwhelming wave of public criticism, I sat in front of my computer in the studio, typing commands with calm hands, my face expressionless, like still water without any waves. They thought that financial proof was a lifesaver, but they didn't realize that it was actually a tool that pushed them closer to the cliff. In my previous life, I knew too well about the greed and arrogance of this group. To make their actions more realistic, they forced more wealthy college students to join in, using extremely convincing fake documents to present themselves. And Chloe, in order to establish her image as a top-tier celebrity with access to resources, used a well-known Silicon Valley investor named Eric's signature and official seal, without his knowledge, to prove her legitimacy. Just half an hour ago, I received an official response to the urgent report I submitted to the Overseas Compliance Monitoring Team and the Financial Crime Investigation Bureau, FCID. After a thorough comparison with the database, the legal team confirmed that Eric and his foundation have never signed any legal documents related to Vanguard Global. That so-called $5 million investment confirmation document was clearly a forged document, with obvious signs of fraud in terms of the ink color and signature style. What's more important is that Eric himself has extremely strict standards regarding his personal reputation and business compliance. As soon as we received the report, his legal team immediately launched legal proceedings against any potential infringement of intellectual property rights and reputation rights. I reviewed the confirmation letter from the compliance monitoring team, and combined it with the information about Chloe's private account used to transfer money overseas, to create a solid case for prosecution. I didn't share this information online, so as to avoid alerting potential threats. A true hunter never disturbs its prey before it falls into the trap. If we expose this now, Chloe and the foreign organization behind her are likely to cancel their trip, destroy all evidence, and even flee with the funds. What I want is not just to stop them from leaving the country. I want to catch them at their most confident and complacent, when they think they have won. At noon, I received a message from an unknown number. It contained just one sentence. The report has been received and verified. The amount of fraudulent financial documents involved is substantial. and there is a risk of cross-border money laundering. The police and the Financial Crimes Bureau have launched an official investigation. A joint operation is in place. Please keep communication open and do not alert the suspects. I looked at the text on the screen, then slowly closed the phone. A cold and cruel smile appeared on my lips. At this moment, in the class group, 15 students are happily sharing the air tickets and visas they just received. Chloe also posts huge red envelopes in the group, enjoying the admiration and compliments from everyone in the class. Congratulations to all. We will meet at the peak of the overseas destination next Monday. Chloe sent a message in the group, her tone filled with pride and satisfaction, almost overflowing from the screen. I watched those messages filled with fanatic enthusiasm and blind admiration, then gently pulled down the curtains of the studio. On Monday morning, as the sky began to light up, the departure lounge at the city's international airport was bustling with activity. Chloe and 15 other students had already changed into business casual attire, holding expensive suitcases in their hands. They gathered together, cheering and taking photos in front of the camera. Chloe stood at the center, wearing a custom-made suit, holding a flag with the Vanguard Global logo in her hand. She smiled brightly. Friends, let's say goodbye to the monotony of everyday life. Our journey is towards the stars and the vast ocean. Chloe announced loudly through the airport's live broadcast, earning admiration and blessings from the thousands of viewers. They had no idea that, in the coffee lounge on the second floor of the building, I was sitting there, holding a cup of American coffee, watching these people as they prepared to enter a slaughterhouse of sorts. In our previous life, we stepped onto this journey full of hope right here at this airport. At that time, we thought we were going to a luxurious office building located in a modern high-tech park. But when the plane landed, our passports were taken away, and we were loaded into several heavily sealed vans. What awaited us was a several-hour journey through rough terrain, followed by reaching a closed-off building with high walls and an electric power grid, located across the border. In fact, I had already determined the real destination 3 days earlier, by using publicly available international logistics data and inbound and outbound flight information. Chloe's so-called overseas innovation base isn't even located in any high-tech park at all. Instead, it's an illegal, unregistered building located at the Tri-Point border. I took out my tablet and activated the custom-made data monitoring software. On the screen, several bright red graphs showing the flow of funds were clearly displayed. In the past 48 hours, Chloe's personal account had engaged in numerous private transfers with several underground money laundering networks within the country. The amounts involved were all tens of thousands of dollars, and all of the summaries were falsely claimed to be consulting fees. These were actually payments made by overseas fraud groups as commission fees for recruiting people to join their scheme. For each student who was tricked into leaving the country, she could earn up to 30% of the ransom and labor costs. Attention passengers, boarding is now starting for the flight to the destination. The announcement sounded, and Chloe, along with 15 excited students, walked through the gate and entered the boarding bridge. At the last moment of passing through the corridor, Chloe seemed to glance back upstairs, with a smirk of triumph on her face. She thought she had won, she thought she had completely defeated me. I smiled, raising my coffee cup towards her, my eyes cold as iron. Go, dear Chloe. Enjoy those precious moments that you've earned through the freedom and hard work of your classmates. The moment you set foot on that land, the money empire you've carefully built, along with all those illegal transfer records you tried to erase, will now become the evidence that proves your crimes. I'm scrolling through the screen, uploading the latest cross-border private transfer transactions and their specific geographical coordinates to the encrypted cloud drive of the investigation team in real time. 12 hours after the plane landed, the storm on social media reached its peak. Chloe's personal account and her videos on various social platforms began to be updated frequently. In the 9 square image posts, there were pictures of magnificent banquet halls, infinity pools overlooking the city night view, and photos of her with several foreign executives dressed in expensive suits, with their faces carefully decorated with subtle mosaic patterns. Each photo was clearly located in a prime location within a top-tech park overseas. On the first day at Vanguard Global, I will use my strength to refute all doubts, Chloe wrote in her post. Thank you to the International Venture Capital team for recognizing our project. Those who try to spread rumors behind the scenes will have to stay in the well forever. Watching the moon. The 15 students who were brought out for the photo shoot also enthusiastically liked Chloe's post. It's really great to follow Chloe. The welcome party on the first day was simply outstanding. Those jealous outstanding graduates must be crying now, right? Actions speak louder than words. Those who claim that we're part of a scammer company, come out and face reality. As these carefully crafted videos and photos spread rapidly across the internet, many fresh graduates who were in the midst of job-seeking anxiety were deeply attracted by Chloe's image. Her private message list was flooded with requests from people who didn't know any better. Some campus media outlets even started to report about her, praising her as the youngest overseas startup entrepreneur. Chloe continued to take advantage of this situation, releasing another high-paying job announcement online, hoping to further trick more innocent students into submitting their resumes and going abroad for internships. However, as I sat in front of the computer screen, looking at these carefully crafted highlight moments, my face showed only a cruel, cold smile. Because only I know that those luxurious backgrounds in those photos are actually temporary rentals from the common areas of a 4-star hotel in the local area. And those so-called foreign executives are actually foreign models they hire on a daily basis from those people who distribute leaflets for $200 per day. Even the location information is just fake data created using disguise software. My long fingers click rapidly on the keyboard, connecting to the top-tier venture capital compliance information network that was established through anonymous channels. It's time to unleash the first storm of chaos in this situation. I didn't choose to argue with Chloe online. Instead, I opened my email and sent a package of evidence prepared in advance to a very important person, Eric, a well-known venture capitalist from Silicon Valley, and his legal director for the Asia-Pacific region. The email not only contained high-quality videos of the fake signature certificates that Chloe displayed at the banquet hall, as well as screenshots of her illegal recruitment activities using Eric's reputation in various universities. It also included detailed transaction records from private payments made through offshore money laundering intermediaries into Chloe's account, as tracked by my blockchain technology. For an investor like Eric, who is extremely cautious about his reputation and has almost pathological demands regarding compliance, being exploited by a scammer using an Asian offshore shell company to engage in illegal labor and human trafficking is like putting his business empire on the edge of a cliff. Just 15 minutes after the email was sent, my encrypted phone rang. After answering the call, a very calm but tone-filled English voice spoke through the phone. I am Eric's chief legal officer. We have already completed the initial verification of the information you provided. Crimes involving the misuse of reputation and official seals of this nature will not be tolerated by us. I am delighted to be able to work with you. I responded in English, using an extremely standard and fluent tone of voice, calm as if I were a machine devoid of any emotions. In addition to reporting this to you, I have also submitted a complete chain of evidence to the National and International Financial Crime Investigations Bureau, FCID. This includes details regarding IP address tracking, bank laundering activities, and the use of forged seals in contracts. I require you to issue an official statement that is absolutely authoritative, one that completely dismantles her disguise. No problem, the other party answered without hesitation. Within 10 steps, our joint global statement will be published. After hanging up the phone, I gently opened the window, allowing the gentle breeze of the summer night to brush my hair. 10 minutes later, a nuclear-level storm struck, capable of shattering entire social media platforms. The official account of a well-known venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, along with a renowned international legal and regulatory platform, simultaneously published a highly severe global solemn declaration and accountability announcement on major domestic and international social media platforms. The announcement clearly and explicitly states the following. First, the institution and its founder, Eric, has never signed any letters of intent with Vanguard Global or any of its affiliated companies, nor has he provided any form of guarantee, such as a $5 million bond. Second, all of the legal documents signed by Chloe are maliciously forged, constituting a serious financial fraud and infringement on business reputations. Third, the institution has officially entrusted its legal team to initiate criminal proceedings against Chloe and her affiliated entities in various jurisdictions, and to cooperate with law enforcement agencies for cross-border investigations. Moreover, The official statement includes a comparison image of the forged signature, clearly showing the differences between the forged seal and the real one. This stark contrast was presented to everyone's eyes, creating an atmosphere of shock and outrage across the internet. The campus forums and X platforms, which were previously full of high-profile announcements, now became completely inactive. Those netizens who were watching the scene, along with those classmates who used to envy her, were all stunned by what happened. What the hell? Did the official actually step in and expose this fraud? Is that signature fake? Are those $5 million fake? Even the company itself seems to be a fake company? What on earth are those photos of Chloe with senior executives and those luxurious mansions? God, where are those students who were taken away? The tide of doubts and panic instantly shifted direction, rushing towards Chloe's social media accounts. Those who used to admire her began to share her posts widely in the comments sections, questioning what was really going on. In the lobby of that hotel far away from here, Chloe, who had just posted her job advertisement, was shocked by the sudden official announcement and the overwhelming amount of questions from people around her. Her face lost all its color in an instant, becoming as pale as a dead person's. The phone fell from her trembling hands, and with a loud clatter, it landed on the smooth marble floor, breaking into pieces. Cold sweat seeped out from her forehead, ruining her delicate makeup. She desperately tried to contact those domestic money laundering intermediaries and foreign connectors, but all she got was a cold message saying the number you called is invalid. She thought she had created a perfect financial trap by taking advantage of information gaps, but she never realized that she had been tricked from the beginning, step by step, into a death trap created by top-notch legal experts and financial networks. The official announcement caused a huge shock both at home and abroad. The news spread rapidly to that closed office building hidden deep within the border. The 15 students, who had been deceived by high salaries and false promises, finally saw the red cloth being torn away from their faces. When they realized that they were confined to rooms with iron bars on the windows, that their passports and phones were forcibly taken away, and that the so-called executive officers were now guarded by men with clubs and electric shocks, panic spread like a plague. Let us go back. We want to go home. This is a scam. Several of the male students rushed towards the door in a frenzy, but were kicked to the ground by the burly guards. Immediately afterwards, there was a loud noise of electric shocks and screams. What are you shouting about? Stop talking. A black stick was pointed at their heads. The guard's tone was cold as a knife. Once you're here, forget about using the pretense of being classmates. Each of you must send emails and requests for money to your relatives and friends back home within 3 days. If you can't raise $50,000 in ransom, you'll have to use your own lives as payment. Only now did these people fully understand that what I had torn apart in the classroom wasn't some high-paying contract at all, it was something that had pushed them into hell. The desperate students poured their anger and fear onto Chloe. Chloe! You scoundrel! You're the one who brought us here to this hell. Didn't you say that this was a chance for your family's resources? A chance with $1 million a year? You animal! Those who once flatteringly served her now rushed towards her like mad beasts, beating her with fists and tearing her hair. Chloe, wearing a tattered designer dress, was knocked to the ground, curling up in pain and screaming desperately. She no longer had the elegance of the once prestigious schoolgirl. To calm the internal chaos and save her own life, Chloe knelt on the floor, covered in bruises, and frantically promised everyone, stop hitting me. I have money. My account contains millions in commissions. I will contact the headquarters back home to transfer the funds, use them to pay the ransom, and get everyone out of here. With trembling hands, she used her backup phone to log into her private encrypted account, which was used for laundering money from overseas. In her eyes, if she could get those millions of illegal commissions out and settle this matter privately, she might still have a chance. However, the moment she trembled and entered the password, clicking Confirm Transfer, a prominent red warning message appeared on the screen. Warning! According to the Financial Crime Investigation Bureau, FCID, and the Interpolated Anti-Money Laundering Center's emergency order, this account has been legally frozen, and any transfers or withdrawals are prohibited. No! It's impossible! This can't be true! Chloe was completely shocked. Her eyes were wide with disbelief as she repeatedly refreshed the screen, But every time she got a message like account frozen, she knew that her funds were indeed frozen. She had no idea that, even before she received the first private transfer, the evidence I provided to the task force had already triggered the emergency asset freezing procedure. The money that she considered her last line of defense had now become a dead end for her. Watching Chloe lie limp on the ground, her face turning deathly pale, her classmates fell into deeper despair and wailing. Meanwhile, the guards, seeing that the funds couldn't be transferred, became grim-faced and approached her step by step. In the dark hallway, the smell of mold and blood intertwined together. With the last millions of private funds being precisely frozen by our Financial Crime Investigation Agency in conjunction with the International Anti-Money Laundering Center, the overseas fraud syndicate's financial connections in China were completely severed. Those core leaders who were hiding behind the scenes had hoped to use Chloe and the 15 high-level contacts she brought in to recover their funds. They also hoped to use this opportunity to recruit thousands of millions in training fees through another round of false job offers. But now, their accounts have been blocked, and they are being hunted across the internet by the authorities. Their plans to recruit more people have become nothing more than dreams. Even the underground money laundering operations they had set up in China were destroyed last night by the local police. The furious gang leader finally revealed his most cruel true nature. "You nasty woman. Using a fake identity and forged documents, you exposed us to the international police. And you still dare to say that there's no problem with our funds?" The heavy metal baton was slammed hard into Chloe's face, forcing her face into the cold, concrete ground. The leader's thick rubber baton made a loud noise as it hit her back and legs. The screams of pain echoed through the closed office corridors. Chloe's once proud white skin was now covered in bruises and bloodstains. Her expensive gown was torn to pieces, hanging loosely on her body. All her pride, dignity, and delicate persona were destroyed by the absolute violence and despair. She lay at the feet of her master, like a dog, tears and mucus mixed with blood on her face. She begged frantically, "Please stop hitting me. I know I'm wrong. I have a house at home, and my parents have money. Let me call them, and they'll sell their house to pay me back. Please, sell your house. Do you really think you can still play the role of a normal person in your home with your parents?" The master spat out some saliva and sneered. "All those official seals and records behind you have been thoroughly investigated by the domestic team. All exit routes are blocked now, and this building could be demolished at any moment. You're nothing but a useless person to us." The master grabbed Chloe's hair and dragged her into the dark prison room, then threw her inside without a second thought. "Watch her carefully. And those 15 students too, don't let them die. If money still hasn't arrived tomorrow, take all of them to the border trading area to have their organs harvested." With a heavy slam, the heavy iron door was closed behind them. A sense of despair and silence engulfed Chloe completely. She curled up in a damp, stinking corner, her body convulsing violently. It was only now, in this desperate situation where she had been stripped of all her privileges and reduced to a prisoner, that the image from that summer day in the classroom suddenly flashed through her mind. That day, sunlight streamed in through the windows, shining on the table. I stood up calmly, tore up that golden-encrusted contract, and then bent down to speak to her in a voice as cold as ice. "Your game has just begun. Enjoy the pit you've dug yourself into." So, from the very beginning, I already saw through everything. I'm not jealous of her, and I'm not trying to draw attention to myself. I was simply watching as she carefully set up the gallows, and then personally tied the ropes around her own neck. It was me. I was the one who walked in here. Chloe touched her broken ribs, emitting a hoarse, desperate cry. In contrast to the hellish scene outside, the headquarters of the Special Operations Team inside was bright with lights, and the atmosphere was serious and efficient. On the huge electronic screen, a highly complex neural network graph was being displayed in real time. Countless red lines representing financial flows, IP redirections, and the ownership structure of fake offshore companies were clearly laid out on the screen, without any confusion. I was dressed in a neat dark suit, sitting in the seat of the technical advisor for the Joint Law Enforcement Operation Team. On the screen of the laptop in front of me, the cross-border data tracking program I wrote manually is being executed with great efficiency. "Please take a look here," I said, standing up and pointing a laser pointer precisely at a gray, unmarked area on the map. By analyzing the underlying transaction logs of all private accounts Chloe used over the past 3 months, I was able to determine the location of the group's core technical servers. To avoid censorship, they disguised the servers responsible for money laundering operations as secondary domain names of a multinational logistics company. The leader of the task force and several international police officers watched my presentation with wide eyes, their expressions showing undisguised admiration. That's not all, I continued, typing away, displaying a set of high-definition satellite maps and diagrams showing the flow of underground financial networks. These are 3 additional hidden nodes through which they transfer people and money. The funds that were frozen last night have triggered internal conflicts within the group. According to the feedback from our honeypot system deployed on the offshore interface, the group is planning to transfer all the suspects to a remote forest area where there is no extradition agreement, and to execute violent punishments against those who refuse to comply. Great! That's very timely. The head of the task force slapped the table forcefully, his eyes shining with a fierce determination. With this precise location information and the evidence from the underground money laundering operations, the last obstacle in our efforts to cooperate with international law enforcement agencies has been completely removed. We must immediately launch the highest-level fox hunting operation. The fox hunting raid launched by the operation began at 3 a.m. With the roar of shock grenades and the fierce attack from multinational law enforcement forces. The underground office building where 15 students and Chloe were imprisoned was breached in an instant. The armed guards, who were still holding on to their weapons, didn't even have time to activate their safety mechanisms before they were quickly overpowered by the agile special forces. The 15 students, in despair, were taken out of the office building one by one, returning to the familiar scent of freedom. They hugged each other, crying bitterly, while frantically blaming themselves for their mistakes. However, at the heart of this storm, the cunning Chloe wasn't among the rescued people. As soon as the sirens sounded in the valley, Chloe, who was previously locked in a confinement cell, had already used a stolen wire to break open the rusty window locks. She ignored all the wounds and pain in her body, and rushed through the high wall like a madwoman. She crawled and rolled her way into the prepared escape route at the border. In her hands, she held tightly a fake passport she had forged over half a year ago, along with a private plane ticket to a country where extradition is not allowed. I haven't lost yet. As long as I get on the plane and reach that place, I can start over under a new identity. Chloe was covered in blood, her eyes filled with the madness of a dying beast. She wore old clothes she stole from a small town at the border, put on a hoodie, and, relying on her last vestige of survival instinct, she managed to escape to a private international airport dozens of kilometers away. At that moment, the airport was sparsely populated. Chloe lowered her hat, with her head down, her body trembling uncontrollably. She stared intently at the prompts on the large screen, indicating that she was ready to board the aircraft. After passing through the long security check process, she finally arrived at the boarding gate. With just a simple scan of her boarding pass, she could finally fly into that world of freedom, free from any legal constraints. She trembled as she extended her hands, handing the forged boarding pass to the staff at the gate. With a ding sound, the machine scanned the barcode, and a clear sound was heard. Chloe's heart dropped suddenly, and a twisted, relieved smile appeared on her face. She was about to rush forward, but at that moment, whoa, the background music in the entire airport broadcast hall suddenly ceased, and a cold, clear, loud voice echoed throughout the terminal. Emergency announcement. Passenger Chloe, your ID number and passport number are related to the notorious transnational fraud case involving fugitive Chloe. You must immediately stop boarding the plane. All your exit documents and airplane tickets have been invalidated according to the law. This voice, like a thunderclap, shattered Chloe's last illusions. Chloe stood still, her muscles stiffening, her eyes widening dramatically, and the smile on her face instantly vanished. Before she could react, the seemingly ordinary passengers and staff members around her suddenly sprang forward. Several undercover agents from the international police force rushed forward quickly, using their powerful strikes to knock Chloe to the ground. Clack! The cold, metal handcuffs were quickly put on her wrists. No! Let me go! You've caught the wrong person. I'm a victim. I was forced into this situation. Chloe let out a scream, one that was utterly desolate and desperate. She struggled frantically on the cold floor. The plainclothed police officer pressed her down tightly, coldly showing her the arrest warrant. Chloe, you are suspected of forging official documents of state authorities, committing major transnational financial fraud, and organizing illegal human trafficking. The evidence is clear. You are hereby arrested according to the law. Just as Chloe was being pulled up by the police, a tall and graceful figure slowly approached from the entrance of the security checkpoint. I stood before her, wearing a sleek white suit jacket, wearing high heels, with my hands in my pockets. My expression was calm and elegant. Chloe stared at me with bloodshot eyes, as if she had been struck by an electric shock. She looked at me, dressed in a white garment untouched by dust and filth, while looking at her own disheveled state, covered in blood, with handcuffs and chains all over her body. Her heart felt like it was being crushed by a giant hand. I stood above her, with no anger or pity in my eyes, only a cold indifference, like a god watching mere mortals. You arranged everything. Chloe's voice trembled, sounding as if it came from a broken gong. I bent down slightly, close to her ear, and spoke in a voice only the two of us could hear. In this past life, you watched me fall from the building. In this life, I will watch you fall into darkness forever. In the courtroom where the high-profile transnational fraud case was heard, the atmosphere was solemn and oppressive. The seats were fully occupied. Among the attendees were journalists from major media outlets, the families of the victims, and those 15 students who had just been rescued from abroad, looking disheartened and exhausted. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the defendant's seat. Chloe, once a bright and beautiful campus star, now wore a yellow prison uniform, her hair messy, and her face pale as paper. A few weeks in prison had made her much thinner, and her eyes were filled with extreme fear and a lingering hope of survival. Your Honor, I am innocent. Chloe suddenly burst into tears, her voice trembling with despair. I was also a victim of that fraud ring from abroad. I had no idea that the company was a scam. I thought it was a high-paying opportunity. I was also deceived by them, and I even suffered physical abuse from them. Please, Your Honor, be fair in your judgment. I'm just a naive graduate student who didn't know much about the world around me. Her defense attorney also stood up and presented what seemed to be a proof of victimhood, trying to shift all of Chloe's responsibilities onto the leader of the foreign gang who had already been arrested. This way, Chloe could be portrayed as an innocent student who blindly followed the crowd and unfortunately got involved with illegal organizations. The families of the victims in the audience murmured in anger. Meanwhile, Chloe saw that the judge was nodding his head while taking notes, and a faint sense of satisfaction and pride flashed through her eyes. However, this sense of pride didn't last more than 3 seconds. Please, the prosecution witness may come forward and testify, said the judge, his voice stern and authoritative. The heavy doors of the courtroom were slowly opened. I stood on the witness stand, wearing a sleek dark blue suit. My posture was upright, and my steps were steady. My expression was calm and composed, my eyes deep like water. When I passed by the defendant's seat, I didn't even give a glance to the woman who was trembling. When Chloe saw me stand on the witness stand, her pupils contracted violently, her face lost all color in an instant, and her breathing completely stopped. Witness, please present the evidence you have, said the prosecutor. I nodded slightly, using the multimedia terminal on the witness stand to project encrypted files and high-definition videos onto the large screen in the middle of the courtroom. Your Honor, the defendant claims that he was also a victim who wasn't aware of anything. This is completely unfounded lies. My voice is clear and powerful. Every word I say sounds like a heavy hammer striking the marble floor of the courtroom. First, this is the electronic copy of the secret agreement signed by the defendant with a foreign fraud syndicate over half a year ago. The agreement clearly states that the defendant can receive a commission for each domestic college graduate who is lured into the scheme, along with a 30% rebate on any future ransom payments. These funds have been transferred in batches through private offshore accounts into the defendant's personal encrypted wallet. The chain of evidence is now complete. On the screen, Chloe's handwritten digital signature and the details of those substantial rebates are clearly displayed. The audience erupted in uncontrollable anger and exclamation. Second, I pressed the page turn button, and a clear surveillance video was shown in front of everyone. This is the surveillance footage from the school auditorium before the incident. The video recording clearly shows that I already warned the defendant about the major legal loopholes in the contract at the beginning of the incident. I submitted a written warning to the defendant. However, the defendant destroyed the warning letter in public and accelerated the subsequent schemes to deceive innocent students. Thirdly, and most importantly, I looked up at the judge. This is the complete record of the defendant's actions. Using a forged signature of an international venture capitalist to carry out false promotions on various platforms, thereby tricking innocent students into leaving the country. All these actions were carried out solely by the defendant using his own device. There is no doubt about the defendant's deliberate criminal intent. Every piece of evidence points to the same conclusion. From private agreements to financial transactions, from warnings to forged evidence, every document serves as a sharp knife, revealing Chloe's true nature as a hypocrite who pretended to be an innocent victim. Chloe, sitting in the defendant's seat, seemed to have been struck by lightning. She stared at the undeniable evidence displayed on the large screen. Her legs became weak, and with a heavy thud, she collapsed onto the defendant's bench, her body trembling violently. "No, it's not like that. You're trying to frame me. You're trying to frame me." Chloe was completely insane. She pointed at me and screamed, but her voice sounded so ridiculous and powerless in the face of undeniable legal evidence. The presiding judge struck the gavel to silence the courtroom. He sternly ordered, "Silence. Defendants, keep order in the courtroom." I stood on the witness stand, calmly adjusting the sleeves of my suit. My gaze was cold as I looked at this once powerful schoolgirl. After a few days, the final judgment was pronounced in the court. The judge's solemn voice echoed loudly within the marble-finished courtroom. Every word he spoke was like heavy iron clamps, firmly sealing the fate of the woman on the defendant's bench. Defendant Chloe, convicted of major transnational fraud, forgery of government documents, forgery of company seals, and illegal organization of others to cross national borders. She will be sentenced to 20 years in prison, with 5 years of deprivation of political rights. All her illegal assets will be confiscated, and any illicit gains will be returned to the state. The gavel was struck heavily, and with a sharp clink, the months-long criminal drama came to an end. At the moment the judgment was announced, Chloe seemed to lose all her strength, collapsing weakly on the floor of the defendant's bench. Her eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, as 2 cold tears traced along her face, which had lost its former beauty and luster. 20 years of youthful vigor would be spent within these cold walls and iron windows. All that awaited her were endless moments of repentance and redemption. 2 uniformed police officers approached, one on each side, and lifted her up. They fastened heavy handcuffs and leg shackles around her. I stood in the sunlight at the exit of the courtroom, pushing open those heavy redwood doors. The afternoon sun was bright and warm, dispelling the last lingering cold nightmare from my past life. On the square outside the courtroom, roses bloomed perfectly in the flower beds. The gentle breeze brought with it the fresh scent of flowers and the breath of freedom. Behind me, there was the loud clinking sound of chains being moved around. Chloe, escorted by the bailiffs, stepped down the steps one by one, ready to be pushed into the black police car parked by the roadside. As she passed by me, it seemed like she used all her remaining strength to turn her head towards me. Her eyes no longer reflected the initial arrogance or the ferocity that comes after being exposed to deceit. Instead, they were filled with nothing but despair and regret. I stood calmly above the steps, watching her from above. I showed no trace of the mockery that comes from triumphant arrogance. Instead, I simply watched her being pushed into the narrow, dark backseat of the police car, as if she were just another stranger passing by. With a loud bang, the back door of the police car was closed firmly, sealing away all the confidential information. The sound of sirens echoed as the black vehicle drove away from the court square, gradually disappearing into the chaos of the streets. In my previous life, I was trapped in that dark, closed-off office building, torn apart by cruelty and despair. In this life, with a clear mind, rigorous logic, and a deep respect for the law, I will hand those evil people who scheme against others over to their own financial jibes. I take a deep breath of the vibrant air, gently adjust the collar of my suit, and walk forward with firm and graceful steps, towards a future that is truly bright, open, and splendid for me.